Okay, let's dive right in. The world of work is changing at absolute breakneck speed. But honestly, the way we educate our children, it really hasn't caught up. Today, we're unpacking a pretty startling argument about the future of employment and why the current education system is essentially failing the next generation. Consider this. According to the source material we're exploring today, the standard skills that used to guarantee a safe, comfortable, middle-class life are rapidly becoming obsolete. They're being entirely replaced by algorithms and automation. We're going to look at a compelling perspective that argues the traditional path to success is just fundamentally broken. Simply trying harder within that old system, well, it's basically a recipe for disaster. Our source is proposing a radical shift in how we need to think about parenting, skill development, and education in the age of AI.
Section 1. The Automation Job Crunch.
So we're moving into an era where AI and massive machines are rapidly taking over tasks we honestly thought were exclusively human. And this isn't some distant science fiction. It's happening right now, and it's causing a massive disruption that the source refers to as a severe job crunch. Let's look at the construction field, for example. The source highlights a totally staggering statistic here. Work that used to require a workforce of 20,000 people is now being handled by just 3,000. Just let that sink in. When you think about 17,000 jobs vanishing in just one single context, you really start to grasp the sheer magnitude of the job losses we're facing across the board. We're looking at a fundamental elimination of human labor because of advanced software and tech dominance. I mean, entire departments are literally being replaced by singular automated systems. Now imagine being a new graduate stepping into today's job market. You've done everything right, you got the degree, but the landscape is just brutally unforgiving. This massive reduction in the necessary workforce has led to endless challenges, and it's heavily impacting folks who are just trying to enter the market. We're seeing freshers simply not being recruited because those traditional entry-level roles, like data entry, basic coding, initial drafting, they're just so easily automated now. And for the ones who actually do manage to secure work, they're met with stagnating salary packages that barely even cover the costs of living. But perhaps the most alarming part is the growing, highly visible inequality between a CEO's astronomical compensation and a fresher's meager take-home pay. It's an incredibly tight squeeze, leaving the newest members of our workforce fighting tooth and nail over a rapidly shrinking pool of opportunities.
Moving on to Section 2, the Education System Disconnect.
So here's the wild part. Despite these rapid, undeniable technological changes completely dominating our landscape, there's a massive disconnect in how we're preparing the next generation. Parents are still queuing up, pouring incredible amounts of time and money into an education system that, as the source bluntly puts it, is basically preparing children for nothing. We're paying more, but for a system that's completely out of touch with reality. And this brings us to a really frustrating realization and an important question. Why is it so incredibly difficult for us to align to this new reality and actually make a shift? Well, it's largely a sunk cost fallacy. For generations, we've relied on the traditional schooling model as this guaranteed ladder to success. We see machines taking the jobs, we see freshers struggling, yet parents keep paying for more tutors, more standardized test prep, higher tuition, all expecting the old return on investment. We literally just keep pushing kids to run faster in a race that's heading in entirely the wrong direction.
The crucial point the source makes here is that no outside solution is coming to save us. The traditional education system simply does not work anymore. It's actually pushing our kids in the wrong direction, just faster. The core argument is captured perfectly in this quote. Our children need not run faster. They need to shift in the direction of effectiveness. Think about it like this. If you're on a treadmill, right, but you're facing the wrong way, sprinting faster isn't going to get you to your destination. It's just going to exhaust you. Doing the wrong thing with more intensity won't yield success. They need to step off that treadmill entirely and start walking in the right direction.
Which brings us to Section 3, developing deep expertise. If the old way of doing things is broken, we really need to ask, what direction should our children be heading in to actually thrive in the near future? If they shouldn't just be sprinting on that traditional academic treadmill, what's the alternative that keeps them relevant in an AI-dominated world? Well, survival and prosperity in this new era will require what the source calls defined expertise. Because, let's face it, all those regular standardized tasks, the kind of stuff you memorize from a textbook to pass a multiple choice test, that's eventually going to be done entirely by machines and AI. You absolutely cannot compete with AI on regular tasks. Instead, defined expertise has to be brought out by focusing deeply on a child's specific, innate strengths and interests. Imagine a kid who's constantly taking apart household electronics. A traditional path might tell them to sit still and memorize historical dates, right? But building defined expertise means channeling that mechanical curiosity deeply, at their own pace, into robotics or engineering logic. AI just cannot replicate that uniquely fostered human passion. Think of a standardized curriculum kind of like an assembly line. It generates a predictable, standardized output. It trains millions of students to produce the exact same predictable answers. And guess what? That is exactly what AI and machines are perfectly designed to replicate and replace. On the flip side, you have defined expertise. This is the artisan approach. It can't be generated by a standardized curriculum because it's uniquely drawn from a child's individual strengths. That makes it incredibly difficult for a machine to simply duplicate. You're cultivating a specific human edge rather than just generic replaceable competence. And this brings us to a pretty harsh truth drawn from the text. Traditional schools and colleges cannot help cultivate this necessary expertise. Now, this isn't necessarily the fault of individual teachers. It's a massive issue of scale, because these institutions have to go by a defined, standardized curriculum to manage hundreds or thousands of kids at once. They're inherently unable to foster unique, defined expertise for every single individual. They simply do not have the bandwidth to build entirely custom educational pathways. So what does that mean? It means a child's future prosperity is now overwhelmingly dependent on their parents' guidance. The parents who guide their child well, who observe their unique traits and cultivate them outside of school, they're the ones who will see their kids prosper. The rest, who rely purely on the traditional school system to do all the heavy lifting, are going to find it to be an immense uphill struggle.
All right, Section 4, the Yancha way.
For the parents out there who recognize this massive shift and are ready to take control of their child's educational future rather than relying on an obsolete system, the text introduces a very specific framework called the Yancha curriculum. This offers a highly targeted, home-based framework designed exactly to develop that deep expertise we were just talking about. Rather than fighting to reform a massive, rigid school system, this is a solution you run entirely at home. It explicitly ensures success by building directly on a child's innate strengths and interests. It's all about parents becoming active observers, noticing what genuinely captivates your child, whether that's storytelling, building blocks, organizing their toys, and then creating tailored weekend projects or daily activities that challenge those specific interests. And the source notes that this can be implemented easily by parents. You don't need a teaching degree for this. It focuses on building experiences that require critical thinking and problem solving. These are experiences that are bound to last a lifetime, far beyond the short-term recall of just rote memorization. Ultimately, to secure a child's future in an AI-dominated world, parents really need to adopt this new way of thinking. The responsibility for true skill development has definitively shifted from the institution right into your home, and that leaves us with a pretty critical choice to make. Will you continue running the old race, pushing your kids to run faster in a broken system? Or will you shift directions, focus on effectiveness, and actually enable your child's success from home? Definitely something to think about.